Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. Thank you for being here today. And I'll ask you to please like, share, comment on the post. And then, if you would like, you can follow along in the book of Galatians, chapter 3, beginning in verse 15. Paul says, to give a human example, brothers, even with a man made covenant, no one annuls it or adds to it once it has been ratified. Now, the promises were made to Abraham and to his offspring. It does not say, and to offsprings, referring to many, but referring to one, and to your offspring, who is Christ. This is what I mean. The law, which came 430 years afterward, does not annul a covenant previously ratified by God, so as to make the promise void. For if the inheritance comes by the law, it no longer comes by the promise, but God gave it to Abraham by a promise. Um, Maybe a little tricky sounding for us today, but Paul here does what he said. He gives a human example, one that the Galatians would have understood, one that we understand. He says a covenant or a will. He says when that is made, or again, an agreement between two parties, when they make that agreement and then it has been ratified, in the case of a will in our society, you would take it and have it perhaps notarized or filed at the court, and then it becomes official. And no one then, he says, goes in after that agreement's been made and it's been signed and sealed. And well, I'm going to use the signed, sealed, and delivered. He says nobody can go back then and add to it. You don't go in with your eraser and erase from it, or go in and add to it. And so he uses that, and we understand that analogy, that illustration. The Galatians would have understood that picture as well. And so he uses that to say, because of that, we know that a person is saved by faith. How do we know that? Because God made a covenant with Abraham and his descendants. The promise, again, was not just given to Abraham, it says, but to his offspring, to his seed. And this promise that he made with Abraham, we find in the book of Genesis, and just to share that with you, just to put that into the notes here. Genesis chapter 17 says, "I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed, and I will establish my covenant between me and thy seed after thee and their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God." So, again, who's he talking about? What does he mean when he talks about the seed of Abraham? Well, the Bible tells us that that seed is Christ. And notice it's singular, not plural. So his promise is pointing to a single person, and that person is Jesus Christ. That's who he's promising here. So he means that this promise has been passed down to Christ, and that he is the one, and that believers through Christ then become part of his inheritance. And just hope I'm making it clear, but what he's teaching here is going all the way back to Abraham. Abraham, because Abraham believed God, and because he believed God, God kept his promise. He honored this covenant that he made with Abraham. And Christ and his descendants then are the recipients of that promise down through the time. And he says that's this is what I mean, that the law that came afterward doesn't annul it. He says, the law came along and doesn't change that promise. The promise is a promise of faith, and so again, when the law was given, the promise to Abraham hadn't been fulfilled. And so the law didn't change the promise that God made to Abraham. And so the promises of God to Abraham and his descendant, Jesus Christ, still stands. Our covenant is based on faith. Our hope is based on faith, not on works. And the covenant that was made with Abraham told us how we are to follow God and how we receive those promises, and that is by faith. And so when the law was given, it was given for a different person. Again, we've already a different purpose, not person, purpose, and we've already been shown how to be part of the family of God, how to follow God, how to have a relationship with God. The law does not justify a person, is what Paul is stressing here. The law is not what makes us right. The law is what reveals that we're wrong. The law reveals our failures. The law reveals our shortcomings. We're not justified by that. We are saved. We are justified by faith. And again, that's that needed to be stressed in Paul's day. It needs to be stressed still today because so many people get caught up, even when we're not around someone teaching that. It's just kind of it seems like it's almost in our human nature. It's almost in our DNA to think we have to do something, we have to be something to please God. When He tells us all along that our salvation comes through faith and faith alone. That is the only place that faith comes from. And inheritance comes by the law; it no longer comes by the promise. It can't come by both. There's no mixture of the two. We don't. Again, he says if it comes by the law, it can't come by the promise. If it comes by the promise, it can't come by the law. And so he's making it very clear to us there's no works in our salvation. Works comes about because of salvation. And I just, I hope I'm getting that across, and I hope I'm making that clear. What Paul is stressing to us here again is that salvation is not of works. It's not of keeping a list of commandments. It is by grace through faith that we are saved. What a great comfort, because we can't keep the works. What a great, what a great release that is to know that our salvation is a free gift of God that comes through faith. Keep that in mind. Think about it. You have a good day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.